We're live.
All right, welcome back, everybody, to House Energy and Digital Infrastructure. We are here for a committee discussion, markup, and possible straw poll if we get done on S-138. And just as a reminder to folks, after we take a straw poll, our final kind of approved thumbs up Hedi language is going to go to House Commerce. For inclusion in the economic development bill. So, my name's Kathleen James. I'm from Manchester.
Scott Campbell from St. Johnsbury.
Richard Bailey, Lamoille 2.
Chris Morrow, Wyndham, Windsor, Bennington.
Michael Southworth, Caledonia 2.
Christopher Howland, Rutland 4.
Dara Torrey, Washington 2.
Graham Putner, Chittenden 13, Burlington.
All righty.
Nick Sheriff, John Stratford, Martin.
Super. All right. For the record,
Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. S-138 is still as passed by the Senate.
okay. All righty. So, hope everybody's been taking good notes. I didn't print out stuff to prepare for this meeting, but I think I have. If we go slowly enough through, I think I'll remember the few changes that we did want to make. So Ellen, I know that we're adding CPACE language to the existing RPACE statute.
You are adding a new subchapter to the chapter on special assessments.
Okay. Okay. At the bottom of page 1, or wherever it fits, we thought it might be a good idea to add a definitions of resilience. And we had kind of a long definition of resilience from a different context in the state's resilience implementation strategy. But then Rep. Morrow had also pulled the definition of resilience and water conservation from the New Hampshire statute. So wanted to talk a little bit about the New Hampshire language. It might be the fastest, easiest way to find a good definition. And then also talk about whether folks wanted to also include water conservation as New Hampshire did. So, Ellen, did I send you? I think I sent you the New Hampshire language.
Yes.
And does everybody have that in their inbox? And or Alex, did you post it?
Sorry, what?
Rep. Morrow had sent around some information from New Hampshire yesterday.
Oh,
And that I sent to the committee, and I hope I copied you. I meant to. So New Hampshire PACE project eligibility. Yeah, I forgot to copy you, Alex. I'm gonna send it to you right now.
Okay.
If you could just post the information from Chris as a PDF, as like testimony from Chris Mark. That's good. Okay, so they call a resiliency improvements that increase the resilience of a property, including but not limited to air quality, snow and flood mitigation, energy storage and microgrids, alternative vehicle charging infrastructure, and fire and wind resistance.
No, they still don't really define resilience. They just give some examples, which is workable. In the resilience implementation plan, they define resilience as the ability of interconnected ecological, social, and economic systems to anticipate, adapt, withstand, respond, and thrive in the face of current and future conditions and disasters. which I think is a good definition.
Yeah,
If we want to define it, I think it's probably pros and cons of defining it. But if we're going to put the word resilience in there, we should probably define it, right?
Ellen, do you think we need to both define the actual word resilience and then give, I like the list of, I like the more specific list from New Hampshire. Could we or should we combine the two? In other words, define resilience using that sentence from Rep. Morrow and then include the language from New Hampshire?
Sure. We can do that.
There's no reason not to.
Only if it doesn't, if it would preclude projects that you would want it to cover.
Yeah.
I'm okay with it.
Um,
Yeah,
Sorry,
Pretty proud.
Ellen, to clarify, even if we define resilience too narrowly? Or if including resilience somehow would preclude other projects?
Yes.
the latter.
The latter.
That if we define it,
I had both,
At
but
all.
oh, I,
Yeah.
yes.
once you define it, this is always a problem with lists in the legislature, which is why we try to include such as, or including but not limited to, or whatever.
Is resiliency used broadly throughout statute so that there may be different meanings that would encompass more of a broader range of ideas?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I mean, this is a broad definition, the ability of interconnected ecological, social, and economic systems to anticipate, adapt, withstand, respond, and thrive in the face of current and future conditions and disasters.
Okay,
I just, do social systems, I mean, I'm not hearing kind of infrastructure resilience in there. Is that covered under social, do you think, or economic? Like it's,
What's that?
Probably at.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Yeah, it would have to be other economic sense.
but we could just add, and physically, in addition to economically and socially and ecologically and physically, it would cover,
Right.
sort of the whole range of roads, bridges, houses, buildings,
Political, social,
greenways.
physical, economic systems. Yeah, I think that's a
and
good
physical,
point. Yeah.
That would make me happier. And the whole point of the body of Vermont laws is to make me happy. So
so,
Infrastructure be a better word than physical?
Well, as we're trying, they're all modifying systems. So you think physical would work grammatically looking better.
Yeah.
all right, Chris, can you send that snippet to Ellen and the committee with the suggested addition of physical, and then copy and paste in there? Do you have the
I have the New Hampshire.
New Hampshire language? Okay, so I think we're thinking of using both, right? Here's how we define resilience, and resiliency improvement means X from New Hampshire. And then I would like to include water conservation. What do you guys think? As New Hampshire did, it says water conservation improvement means measures, equipment, or devices that decrease the consumption of or demand for water, address safe drinking water, or eliminate lead from water used for drinking or cooking.
that feels consistent with intent to me.
Okay,
You know, if the project wants to clean the lead up out of their water, that feels like an environmental project to me.
all righty. All right, so I think we're good with the question of adding a definition of resilience that Rep. Morrow flagged from the get-go. On page 3, lines 7 through 10. We talked about, specifically line 9. We talked about will enable the project to exceed. We had talked about saying meet or exceed.
You did something.
You want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. Are you okay with that?
So what page?
Page 3, line 9. We're into, energy efficiency. And we just wanted to say meet or exceed
Yeah,
it.
I remember that. Totally agree.
And then we had a little weird question about the current building code because of the
That was what they code.
Because of the lack of a building.
At least residential building. This is,
Yeah.
this really would be mostly commercial projects, but it seems like it ought to refer to
CVs, right?
EVs as well. So building code and commercial building energy standards.
Okay.
One-year version. Yeah.
Can we just leave it?
No, just whatever the current standards.
Yeah.
And right now,
Right now, they're 2020, but
they're de facto 2020, but de jure 2024.
okay. So, excuse me, at the bottom of page 3, I had just jotted a note that said includes stormwater retrofit, because we heard that from different people, but I think we've now covered that, right? Yeah,
Well, I was gonna mention that 3 and 4 on this page kind of referring to building codes. And I don't know that like a stormwater project on a site would relate to a building code, like, you know what I mean, in these sections?
I think we just want to make sure that
Maybe it's-
stormwater projects would be covered, period. So I don't
Right.
know where that goes in the
And
bill.
that they'd be considered a resilience improvement.
Would they?
I mean, I think so.
I think we just want to make sure that however
Because
we
it's
do it,
it's not really a water usage improvement. It's not related to building codes. So it doesn't.
Is it
doesn't fit
resilience,
into
though?
any of the existing. That's the question. I mean, we could just,
or maybe we need to add stormwater specifically somewhere.
yeah, I have a note to do that in my,
Me too.
That,
I think
that
we're-
should be in there. Yeah, that's specific. For sure.
I think maybe we want to make sure. What is, Ellen, what do you call stormwater? Is that, maybe we could add it to the New Hampshire definitions of resiliency improvement? Just make sure stormwater is explicitly included.
Yeah, it does, unless it fits under flood mitigation.
I feel better if you said the words.
Yeah, where do we say flood mitigation?
it's not on this page.
It's in the definition of resiliency improvement.
That we're adding from New Hampshire.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think we're gonna need another.
Yeah.
Another where
I agree.
paragraph.
Stormwater isn't only associated with flood mitigation.
Right. And I don't know anything about stormwater, so I just want to make sure we have all the right words to make sure whatever these projects are, whether they're retrofits or new or responding to state statute,
Like parking lot,
like the whole parking lot thing.
which a lot of them are doing it.
Yeah, I think it would be really great if stormwater were covered in its iterations, so. However we do that. Is that okay with everybody?
So we are adding wickets for the applicant to get through. Right? Prior to the written agreement, the property owner shall have an analysis performed that includes the following products and applicants where it's already.
No, I think I'm adding it to, I feel like we're adding it to projects that will be eligible for CPIS funding.
Oh, where,
So you can include storm, well, I don't know where it's gonna go. Ellen's gonna put it in somewhere.
oh, okay.
So maybe we're back on page 2. Wait. I think we're on. Where do we talk about what kind of projects are eligible? Is it all the way back on page 1?
Yeah, at the bottom of page 1.
Yeah. So we're talking about projects related to renewable energy, to energy efficiency.
Yeah, we need to add resilience to that.
Yep, and we're gonna add resiliency. And then maybe that is where we also add stormwater or include that specifically under resiliency. And that is a job for me. Okay,
So So commercial properties have clean energy district approval. So is the bill all about clean energy? And I'm not trying to nitpick, but you start going into stormwater and we're getting out of energy really quick.
well, I think that fits into the broader question of, I thought anyway, that the committee was interested in the fact that New Hampshire's CPACE law included energy efficiency, renewable energy, and resilience. And I thought we all thought that was a good thing to add, like New Hampshire did. So once we add that, then the question is, we had also heard some testimony that it would be great. It could be important to include stormwater projects since they are sometimes, but not always related to flooding and or climate resilience.
But would that change the view of the lenders?
I think the lenders can approve or disapprove the loan projects as they're presented to them. And say, we'll finance this, and that, but we don't agree with your stormwater things.
These are commercial projects. I'm imagining a big manufacturing plant that's expanding and needs to manage the stormwater runoff from the new section of roof and the new parking lot as they put together their funding, all the different sources to get their expansion built. Could be a helpful tool. I don't, I do wonder about the capacity of the lenders. And it feels like there are enough lenders out there lending into this space so that Vermont is a small incremental on a national basis, that we're not going to tap out the market, which is to say someone's not going to get a loan to do stormwater, which will prevent someone else from getting a loan to do energy efficiency. But I worry about that a little bit.
Well, I mean, the thoughts I have on that are, this is not some limited pot of money. This is some clearly defined limited pot of money.
Yeah.
That if you get $1 million, I only get 80,000. I mean, this is a commercial, these are private lenders. They're going out to raise the capital that they want to lend. So if there's more demand, they'll try to get more loans out there. And then the other thing I would respond to Rep. Southworth's comment is, in a very, very limited way, soon be expanding, but I do loan underwriting. And we have broad criteria for the loans we offer. And if somebody comes in with a loan application that includes something that we don't think fits, or we don't want to give them that amount of capital, we just say, we're not financing that part of it. So if an application comes in and the private lender doesn't want to loan for stormwater, they don't approve that part of the application. Or if it's a case where it clearly seems like a part of the resiliency response, they approve it and include it.
Seems like the name hasn't caught up with how it's being implemented in states across the country.
Yeah.
Beyond clean energy. I think that was the origin of it, and then
We see Mason.
it became useful beyond that scope.
Property as clean energy and resilience.
Okay.
I wanted to do a time check. I think you have a witness at 10:30. Do you want to proceed with this or you want to move?
Who's at 10:30?
Yep, yep, yep.
Oh, hi, Jamie.
Yes.
Do you have a sec?
Sure, take your time.
Okay, great. Sorry about that. Let's just try to finish this first walkthrough. On page 5, line 15, we have something really important we have to fix. This is about the 90% of the assessed value of the property.
So it's the big one.
That was the big one.
Appraisal value is complete and stabilized.
Did you write that down? I have it in my email.
Say that again?
Appraisal value as complete and stabilized.
Okay.
It's the line 15 where it says towards the end of the line shall not exceed 90% of the assessed value. We are replacing the word assessed.
The praise
Appraisal value
or as
as complete and
Yep.
stabilized.
Yep, I found it too. So replace, and this came from everybody, replace assessed value with, well, Vita gave us 3 options. Replace assessed value with appraised value, as complete appraised value, or stabilized value where applicable. That was from Vita. Castle Green also sent in what Rep Southworth suggested.
And I like that language better. It's
Okay, sounds good.
cleaner. Yeah.
So do you have it?
So which one did you?
Reps out, so-
Oh, okay. All 3.
So appraised as complete and stabilized, right?
Appraised value as complete and stabilized.
Should it be or stabilized?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, it says appraised, as complete, appraised, or stabilized. Where applicable, I can snip this out and send it to you.
I have John's testimony.
Oh, great, it's from Joan.
I'm not sure if you are. The notion is the building gets complete and then it takes another couple of years to get it stabilized. You know, they get filled with renters and have stable tenants and all that. So I think you want complete and stabilized. I suppose I can imagine a situation in which it's stable but not complete.
What's the definition of stabilized? If you have a hotel, is 70% occupancy rate stabilized or 90% occupancy?
Yeah,
But if you have commercial property, is it some amount of the space that's leased?
And I think stabilized means sort of what they expect it to be, kind of its average completion running rate over time. Yes,
Rate of
normal.
Cash flow of the,
Yeah,
after.
yeah, Vita said or, so
but they're,
I'd really rather go with,
read this thing again, please.
And is stabilized, term
yes.
that everybody knows? So does it need to be defined or is it defined in statute?
economic development. Yeah, the next committee. Take this one.
So. Vita said, and this is posted, as testimony. Appraised value, as complete appraised value, or stabilized value where applicable.
Either complete or stabilized.
See, the stabilizer is not going to be known for 2 or 3 years, right? So,
Well, it's all a projection. You're getting this loan.
yeah,
It's what they expect the value to be once the thing is built and stabilized.
yeah.
So it has to be or, because every project is going to be different and stabilized may not apply to every property. So they talked about a multifamily building that is mixed use where they want to make sure the apartments reach a certain level of occupancy. They talked about a hotel where they want to make sure it's up and running, but there may be something like Black River where stabilization doesn't really apply because they've retrofitted the building and
Yeah, you can imagine a project where it's not, stabilization's not really applicable. When it's complete, it's stable.
Yeah, okay.
okay. That was page 5. Okay, page 7. Lines 17 through 21. I think we want to add, Pepsi to the list of relevant stakeholders.
There's also the question of the regional development corporation should be continued.
Oh, yeah.
Well, we didn't address. We didn't have that.
Yeah.
We also want to put a date here. I think we need a report to the legislature by December 15th. To us and Commerce on the House side, and I guess who did this bill on the Senate side?
Senate Natural Resources.
Okay, Senate Natural Resources on the Senate side. Okay.
I have a note that Vita said we could consider striking them because they're a lender.
Yes. We did cover that. They weren't gonna let your net out to be involved in neighborhood.
They might have thoughts on who the third party administrator should be.
Didn't they?
Yeah,
They might be
they should weigh
consulted.
in.
Yeah, okay.
They would be good for that.
Okay. We're almost done. Okay, we've defined resilience. I wrote that down. Page 9. And 11. I didn't have any more notes.
That's something I have to look up because I forgot what it is.
Okay. And then Jamie, thank you for being patient. Thank you. We're almost done. And it's for us helpful because now Ellen can go.
Double line, short, long.
Okay. Anybody else have anything else? Those are all my notes, I believe.
Chris.
We find something we can take to Commerce. Okay. Ellen, thanks. Should we schedule a straw poll later today? What's your timing?
What is, I can have it for you when you need it. I didn't know you were gonna try to put it today, but I guess I can. Draft now.
It's up to you. I don't know what your workload is. Yeah, we did tell Mike we'd try to get it to him in Commerce, but
Okay.
just let us know.
I'll
Okay.
do it. 2 o'clock or what? I don't
That'd be
know what
great.
your schedule is.
We could come back after 4.
Okay.
All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
Thank you. Good.
Okay. All right, great. So, Alex, could you update our agenda? Just put like 2 o'clock. Okay. So I think 4 will be done. All right, Jamie. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me in.
Yeah, so switching gears back to S202. Plug-in solar, we're getting very close to done on the plug-in solar language. And had some interest from the committee to hear about how or whether this would impact insurance.
Thanks for having me in this morning. I'm Jamie Fian. I'm with Primer Pepper, Eggleston and Kramer, Burlington firm. Worked with a number of entities, but this morning here on behalf of the American Property Casualty Insurance Association. APCIA is a national trade association of over 1,000 members, several hundred of whom write all lines of property and casualty in Vermont. Collectively, they represent about, or write about 2/3 of the Vermont market. I also work with other insurers, but today, this morning, APCIA will suffice. Yes, as the chair alluded to, S202, the other chamber had a couple of questions as well on insurance, namely related to, how insurance will cover these devices, and secondarily, as always, is there going to be any rate impact if, homeowners use them?
Any what, sorry?
Will there be any rate impact?
Oh, rate
impact, yeah,
Yeah.
if used by homeowners. And so I submitted some written testimony to them. The same to you all. I gather you had some questions, or maybe perhaps beyond what I've submitted for written testimony. So I'm here to, I can restate, Madam Chair, however you like this to unfold. I can just open myself up for questions. I can restate how insurance will do this, speak to the rate piece, speak maybe to how does a larger homeowners insurance policy?
All of the above.
Okay.
Great.
Great. So we are talking about, the most relevant policy here is the homeowners, although it could also be condo insurance. It could be renters insurance. Insurers, as you know, this is a new sort of device. It's particularly new for insurance companies, right? They're always a little behind the curve, on these things. But for now, insurers are treating these portable solar devices similar to an appliance, a home appliance. And in that capacity, they're covered under the personal property portion of your homeowner's insurance. Homeowners is in several categories: the dwelling, other structures, personal property, liability, etc. And while they all work together, each one serves a specific role. In this case, personal property will protect against theft, damage, replacement, repair, etc. Personal property, it's going to depend upon everybody's own, policy and how much you want to insure. It's typically, if you looked at a ballpark number, 70% of the dwelling coverage. So these are the contents of your home in general. You can always add more coverage to your policy, particularly the personal property. Think, for example, jewelry, artwork, things like that, because there are the limits on the policy in terms of how much it will pay out for the personal property. But if something, and I don't know the value of these, you can help educate me, but if some are substantially expensive, in other words, to replace under a policy, you can always add an endorsement or a rider that adds more coverage. So that's sort of where they're covered under the policy.
So just your homeowner's personal property.
Correct. Now the homeowners, of course, as I mentioned, the dwelling coverage, will have coverage for that dwelling and the contents based on covered perils. We all know theft, we all know fire, we all know, the usual, natural catastrophe type coverage. It also extends to, sudden and accidental appliance failure that causes damage to the structure. Think a dishwasher with a broken hose and you're away for the weekend and, get damage all over.
Sudden and what? Accident.
Sudden and accidental, right? Where
Appliance
it
failure.
won't cover is, like normal wear and tear, improper maintenance, things, lack of maintenance, things like that really are the responsibility of the homeowner. The insurer assumes the homeowner is going to be taking care of, their contents and updated as necessary. As I mentioned, they're new in terms of the insurance world. I hear from insurers that in terms of, the question on impacting rates, I hear from insurers that right now they're not seeing any claims activity that are driving loss trends from the use of these. So as such, there's no market reaction by insurers in terms of rates. Now, I always want to give the usual disclaimers or caveats, right? I mean, if that changes, if they start to see claims being driven as a result of something related to these devices, they may take a closer look to say, well, we need to have some underwriting standards in place that might help to kind of help the homeowner minimize risk, but also help, mitigate
potential future exposure losses, et cetera. So that's not happening, but, you know, anticipating perhaps a question or two related to that. That's always a potential. The other disclaimer, of course, is that, you know, no two policies are alike, no two companies are alike. You know, each company may approach homeowners policies in general differently than another. So as I always do, and as insurers always do, encourage communication with them in terms of what your policy is, what it's covered for, or your agent, to make sure that there's adequate protection. You know, good rule of thumb is to take pictures of all your personal properties so that you've got some sort of inventory of that the personal property needs to be replaced. So, and that conversation can help determine levels of coverage and whether or not the personal property as contemplated in the policy is enough, or if an endorsement should be considered. And then adding them.
We're adding, I don't know if this is relevant to your testimony, but I'm thinking about it for renters. We're adding a language to the bill saying that landlords have to give permission for a tenant to plug one of these in. Just FYI.
Yep.
Mark?
It wouldn't be uncommon. Landlords will have their own policies for their tenants. Sorry, I didn't move to it.
No, well, that's my questions about, you know, the landlord, because the genesis of this is in Germany, where it's gotten rolled out quite widely, but mostly for renters. And homeowners have other options to for solar, and so a lot of these, they call them balcony solars. You know, they're in those big units and hanging on their balcony, and so it's potential for renters to be participating in the solar market. And so if it develops that way here, you know, the landlord policies are what really going to be effective, right? Any
No,
other
again,
comment on that?
they would probably, at least as I explained, you know, my hunch, and that's dangerous, is that they would also treat these as personal property under their commercial, you know, liability policy that they hold. Now, that said, you know, there could be, for example, you know, cooktops, right? Do landlords have specific, you know, either permission or exclusions, you know, that they've employed with their tenants in terms of what's allowed to be used in the units for, you know, space heaters, for cooktops beyond stoves, those sorts of things. So that's probably potentially a market that might develop. But as I say, I think at this point, since they're not driving claims, that it's likely treated as personal property. Like the renter's policy itself would only cover the personal property, as you needed to go to the landlord policy that would cover it in the structure.
Landlord's policy.
Right.
Wouldn't there be a little concern or flagging from the insurance companies about energy generation that's fed into an apartment, especially the landlord's stuff, in an unconventional fashion? It's going into a circuit which wasn't designed or possibly not designed to have energy back fed in at that point. Is there any issue with that?
I haven't heard issues right there. It's interesting. I mean, you know, there's insurance companies will often work with policyholders to help mitigate risk. You know, like an alarm that goes off if you've got water in the basement, right? Like, or there's another one that you can actually plug in to an outlet, and it identifies hot circuits that could be, you know, identified and addressed before a problem happens. So it's another way to communicate with the insurance company, see if there's something in place.
Yes.
So, the very little bit of research, it seems as though, as Rep. Morrow described, the widespread deployment in Germany has not led to fires, electrical hazard, human shock damage, or any of those things. But I'm wondering, right now you can go on Amazon and you can have one of these things shipped to your home and you can plug it into your wall. And the legislation we're contemplating is going to regulate that, make it UL certification to different standards, so you won't be able to do that. But at the moment, that's the case. So I'm wondering, someone buys one of these things off Amazon, gets it delivered, plugs it into the wall in an apartment, and it causes a fire in that structure. Where does the liability fall?
Yeah, it's always dangerous to talk about, yeah, scenarios and examples. But in this instance, you know, I guess I'd emphasize cause really matters. What was the cause of the damage?
Yeah.
Was it the unit itself? Was it a power surge that led to other things? Was it improper installation? If you're talking about commercial installation, you know, things that might come up there. If it truly is, if it is sort of a power surge, accidental, as I mentioned, you know, there's likely coverage of a policy for that.
But if it's caused by an overcurrent that heats up an electrical line,
What was the cause is the electricity? Yeah, I'm out of my realm when we're talking about
it's
electricity.
too much power going into that circuit,
Yeah.
which
And it's
creates
driven by the unit.
and is driven by the unit and could create overcurrent, which creates heat and possible fire.
And the breaker doesn't know about it because the power is coming in from the other end of the circuit. It's not going through the breaker, so you.
I think
Well, as with all things, there may be reason to investigate to really narrow down the focus of the cause to determine where liability is appropriate.
I think we're going to hear from next week that overcurrent is covered by UL 3700.
Yeah.
So if that were the case, the tenant would be breaking the law if we pass this bill.
So. Yeah, you know that if somebody put rooftop solar on their home, it doesn't add to the assessed value at the municipal level. The $2,000, $20,000 of solar on your house, your home assessment doesn't go up for 20,000, but you may exceed the replacement limits of the structure with the solar. Do they add a rider or something to cover additions of rooftop solar?
Yeah, those are a little bit different because those are sort of commercially installed, and because they're built into the structure, they're covered under the dwelling part of the policy and not personal property.
I think my personal questions was the difference of not so much insuring the device, the
Yeah.
appliance, but the insure the, in this case, it's a renter that is a renter and not the homeowner plugging in a device. And
Those that are sort of part of the structure, like a heating system, like an HVAC, you know, are, because they are now part of the structure, insurers may have a little bit of different approach to how they underwrite. Like, for example, it has to be a licensed certified installer, you know, those sorts of things.
More questions?
I guess my thinking was about liability also. Fire, if the device fails somehow, somebody gets injured by it, trips over a device that is placed in the wrong place or something like that. So, these are the kinds of things that insurance companies would not cover. They can or be concerned about, I guess.
Well, it actually would cover it. Again, you know, the homeowner's policy also has a liability portion that can range from, again, we all decide whatever level we want.
Yeah.
But it could be 100,000, 300,000, 500,000, for example. And that's to protect the homeowner against, you know, injuries or damage caused to others while on premise. And that actually carries, you know, to that homeowner.
So the insurance company would be concerned about this being an additional hazard or something.
At this point, again,
Yeah.
no different than, you know, ice on the steps or, you know, a space heater in the middle of the room.
Okay. I'm not looking for big drainage.
Yeah, we're not asking you to pull into this one either.
Yeah.
Just responding to
Yeah.
questions by you all. Which is,
We just want to make sure
insurance shows up a lot sometimes.
we're covering all the bases.
So, yeah,
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Yeah.
thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
All right, so we are back. I need to print out a new agenda. We are back at 2:00 for a straw poll on S-138. So Ellen will walk us through all the changes we just talked about. We'll take a straw poll and that will be off the commerce. And then that's it for the day, and we actually don't have anything then until 1 o'clock tomorrow. Okay, so 2 o'clock today, first straw poll, and then 1 o'clock tomorrow to learn about the accessibility work that is going on our state legislative and judicial websites.
And should we assume that it's 2 o'clock or 10 minutes after 4? Yeah, was that?
Well, I think I said to Ellen.
I'm
So just watch your text.
just wondering if we go long. So
Oh, yeah, if floor goes long, then 15 minutes after, not earlier, I don't think. Okay,
That's the end, had an hour and a half today.
oh, she did?
It seems long, but
Yeah, it does.
we have three bills, 3 house resolutions.
Well,
God knows how many
Could be an
people on
hour.
the balcony.
Could be an hour in the balcony.
Yeah.
okay, so yeah, 15 minutes after 4.